Okay, Maite here. I want to share a little bit today about how to prepare your space and a regular practice of pelvic steaming, also known as yoni steaming, in Spanish, baños de vapor, or in English also vaginal steaming, but I like to call it pelvic steaming because really it benefits the entire area, all the orifices. So for example, the urethra is going to benefit, the same with the vagina and also the anus and the musculature. And in general, just the fact that you're dedicating and giving the time and space to honor your sacred bowl, the pelvis, it has incredible benefits. This is a really ancient feminine practice. It's been done for thousands and thousands of years, and there's data of such a practice from Korea all the way to Central America, Guatemala, Mexico, and even in ancient Greece, there was there's documentation around a practice where women would go to certain parts where there would be natural occurrences where out from the rock, steam would be coming out from the center of the earth, like hot steam, and women would have ritual and ceremony and inviting this steam into the vulva, the vagina, and the womb space. So I find this to be such a loving, healing practice that certainly I invite you to do it in ritual and ceremony. You can do it in the comfort of your house, and you don't need really that much. Most important is the intention that you bring. And this is a somatic tool, I find. It's a healing practice where you, by bringing awareness into the sacred reproductive organs and bringing warmth through the steam, there is such potential to do deep healing, even ancestral healing. Just by the mere fact as well that you're bringing conscious awareness and sensation to a part of the body where traditionally for many women there's been a level of disconnection. It's a very somatic, it's a very embodying practice. It invites you to be fully in your body and bring awareness, and with awareness, a very loving practice. The benefits are so vast, and yet there's very little science around it, although there's increasingly more scientific evidence that's coming of the benefits, especially around postpartum. That's where the studies have been done. So for women that have recently given birth, and this would be traditionally a moment where women would do steaming to help with general healing of scar tissue, inviting the womb to go back to her original size. It's also supportive and healing of hemorrhoids by the mere fact that it brings an increased flow of circulation, of blood circulation. Another moment that would be beneficial to do the practice, it's around before your bleeding time and after your bleeding time. So women that have heavy periods, that have heavy flow or no flow, absence of menstruation, or they have menstruation, they're menstruating, they're bleeding, but they have a lot of pain. It eases cramping, especially if it's done before, like I say, or after. If there's spotting, clotting of the blood, because you're bringing increased movement, it helps to optimize the body's ability, the womb specifically, the womb's ability to release, so that the next month there wouldn't be any black spotting because you've shed everything in the previous one. It's also linked to improving when there's challenges around fertility. And I think in part it's because it brings balance to hormones. And at the same time, it brings lubrication, so it stimulates cervical fluids. It's common to after you've done the steaming to feel like more lubrication. So very good for vaginal dryness, but also to prevent and to treat infections. So urinary infections, but also any bacterial or even yeast infection in the vagina. So as you can see, very vast spectrum. I personally have been steaming for over 4 years now, and I believe it was crucial in my journey of conception. It helped me definitely heal scar tissue. I had a lot of scar tissue from what I believe that was an aggressive DNC, which is the intervention that is done at the hospital when you have a pregnancy loss. I had a pregnancy, one of them, because I had many, but one of them was at week 11, 12, and there was so much blood that I didn't feel comfortable having the loss at home like I had done previously. So I went to a hospital and I had quite an aggressive, even though the doctor said that she didn't, I'm pretty sure. And then I had the opportunity to have a camera go inside my womb, and it was confirmed that there was a lot of scar tissue, which was then contributing for me to not being able to conceive, because there was not even space in the womb for implantation. There was some scar tissue that there was so much that it was like a crazy intense web. And steaming definitely helped dissolve, and yeah, and I've conceived cofactors, right, for different reasons. So again, like I said, you don't need much. I have a very fancy throne here that I want to share with you, but you don't need this. But if you were interested either in making or purchasing one, the idea is that it has an open space where you can put your container where the tea, where the infusion would have been brewed, and then you put it inside. This one has a inverted triangle shape so that I can see it, and the steam will come up and has quite a large area. For me, it's very important that the steaming, and that's why I call it pelvic steaming. I like referring to it as pelvic, so that the urethra and the anus and all the 16 over plus 16 muscles of the pelvic floor really get the benefits of the steaming. So I think that a wide space is good. And then you would need blankets or towels, because essentially what you're doing is you would be sitting with no underwear, perhaps a skirt, a long skirt, and then wrapping yourself with the towel, with towels or blankets, to really conceal the steam, so that the only place that the steam can go is up through the base of your pelvis. Whether you're in a hot climate or not, but especially if you're not in a hot climate, you would wear socks. You want to keep yourself very warm. And then even the upper body, as warm as possible, so that you can really bring all this heat within your body. What's the next step? Well, before preparing, this is in terms of your seat, right? Which, if you're not using a throne or a stool like this, you could do it inside the toilet, like inside the toilet bowl as well. That's a really good seat, and you have a big cavity. As long as you have a pot that fits in and can stay stable and not spill over, perfect. So those two are the seated positions that you could hold for longer. You want to steam between 15 to perhaps 45 minutes, depending how comfortable you feel, how much time you have. So another way would be without any of these tools, which would be either in yogic squat, in malasana, or on all fours on the floor. Those two positions require a certain amount of stamina, right? If you're going to hold them for at least 15 minutes, that's why then you may want to use this. Although those two, either in a yogic squat or in a tabletop position, I find them to be the best, really. If you can hold it and find yourself relatively comfortable, perhaps the upper body on the forearms and down on the floor, amazing. And the steam will go and really tone the pelvic floor muscles, whereas here, if you're seated, just by the pull of gravity, and if there's been prolapse as well in postpartum, I'm thinking more, then the other position is more, because you're more engaged, more active, and not just allowing the pull of the earth down. So that's in terms of positions. And then in preparation, you will need a pot. It could be even, I mean, I like using this nice ceramic just because also I find it ceremonial and special, and I use it specifically for this. It could be a kitchen pot. And ideally something that you, if this is a regular practice, that you dedicate only for, right? Water, at least 3 to 4 cups of water. And then you want around 3 tablespoons of herbs. One herb or perhaps a combination. I generally do at least 3 combinations. There's so many herbs you can use, right? And with this, I would say, even for me to tell you a particular recipe, I don't think it's supportive. This is a practice that is also encouraging sovereignty, right? Personal authority. You're not depending on someone else, external source. So familiarize yourself, perhaps even with the herbs that are around you, the flowers that are around you, perhaps even in your own garden, you begin to cultivate it if you have a garden space, or perhaps flowers or herbs that are growing in the wild where you are. Familiarize yourself with their properties, but also it's beautiful to build a relationship with them and perhaps begin to communicate with them, see them as allies, and see which one particularly speaks to you, because that's going to shift as well. It's a very unique personal path. So whatever it is that you need moment to moment would be reflective of that relationship and more conducive in your own healing journey. But no, in general, we use, it's good to have a herb, at least one herb that is strong, astringent, that increases circulation. So for example, Mugwort does that. In Spanish, we call it Artemisa. It's one of the very powerful feminine herb that grows in many parts of the world, which also is telling something of the how much we may need her and that she's available. So Artemisa could be a good one. She's good in terms of fighting infection. She's good at balancing hormones. She's been known to treat endometriosis, PCOS, even fibroids and myomas. Very good in terms of also, yeah, bringing flow. So if you're not bleeding much, if you're not bleeding at all, this would be a good one. And a good one to use before you're bleeding, also to prepare the womb to be even more effective at the time of release. But it may be that you use rosemary. Rosemary has similar qualities in that respect. Romero. Also, rosemary has a very uplifting smell. So if you're needing that extra lift and at the same time grounding, she's really good. She's also powerful in terms of connecting to ancestral trauma, which it's a strong benefit of this practice in general. Also, rosemary is antifungal and antimicrobial, so it's very good for treating infections. It also speeds wound healing. So if there's in postpartum, it's a good one to have. And Mugwort has a similar action in that respect to treat if there's been tears. Another one that's good for tearing and for scar tissue and for hemorrhoids is Calendula. This one is a really amazing flower to also help with any infection. I'm checking on my notes, so I'll make sure that I tell you everything that I wanted to share. Another one that grows many parts of the world, which is called the queen of any feminine processes, is sage, salvia. And there's many different types, right? So depending where you are in the world, you have one type of sage or the other. But in general, She's very good in lessening menstrual pain, vaginal dryness, and again, to bring regularity to your cycles. An absolute favorite, so feminine, so soothing, brings in connection to that pure innocence of when we're a young girl. Rose. Rose is also such a beautiful smell. Again, very good for healing in postpartum. She can help if there's a lot of bleeding. She can help like contain that. In general, she's just very soothing and loving. And she's also good in terms of toning the reproductive organs. And so in general, the tissues of the pelvic floor and the womb. Another really amazing one that you can find in many parts of the world is lavender. So lavender is a relaxing, it's very soothing, it's also antiseptic. So good for helping with, any potential infection or bacteria. She's gonna be great to have, a great ally. Chamomile is another really good one. If there's a lot of cramping, so if there's pain with menstruation, she's a good one to have before and after the menses, and she's good for urinary infections because of her antimicrobial properties. And another one that we use is called motherwort. She's also like mugwort. She's very motherwort, so she's very estrogen. She's a tonifier as well. She's a good cleanser. She helps strengthen and at the same time relax the uterine muscles. And in general, she's super good toning, and it helps bring menstrual flow. So as you can see, this is a practice that of course is going to enhance fertility, and we want to see fertility not just as conception, right, but optimal health, optimal well-being. So a practice that to do a couple of times a year, absolutely powerful, and even to do it quite regularly and constant. I've had moments in my life where I've done it really constantly, like at least 3 or 4 times a month. And in the postpartum, I did it from day 3, when I could see that there was no danger of hemorrhaging. I was doing it quite at onset, right after birth. So the 3rd day, and then consistently for at least twice a week for the first quarantena, for the first 40 days. For the entire 4th trimester. And I had a little bit of tearing during the birth, so I healed amazingly. I didn't have much cramping during the immediate postpartum either, and I feel like, definitely pelvic steaming really helped. So was super supportive. So inviting you to create sacred space, to perhaps lit candles, to make sure that during that time you're not going to be disturbed. Even prior, the preparation, to have clarity of what's your intention, what prayer are you bringing, and when you identify what herbs or flowers you want to use, whether you're purchasing them or you're harvesting them from your garden, or you're going wild foraging, to connect first to the herbs and to the flowers, and to ask permission, to share your intention, to only take what you need. And once ceremony is finished, to pour with a prayer or any words of gratitude or silence, whatever feels more reverent to you, in reverence to the earth, for you to do whatever that is, but to offer the flowers and the tea that's been brewed back with that intention of bringing reciprocity, right? We're not just taking, but with the acknowledgement of, this is not even waste, this is going to be nutritious gifts for another living organism of Gaia. In terms of where you purchase, if you do purchase, I would encourage you to do so from a company that is organic, that is not using pesticides, that is not a monoculture, is not promoting monoculture, there's ethical trading. And it could be that you do that by beginning to have your own herbs in your garden that you're making the steam with. So yeah, this is medicinal, this is powerful, invites healing. And as we heal, we know that we're doing healing for the collective and as part of the organism of Gaia, of the Great Mother, the Great Father, we are healing multidimensionally, right? In every direction. So yeah, create your space. And I'm excited to continue to dive into this journey deeper with you and and to steam together. If you have any questions, you know where to reach out. And I believe that's all. Thank you so much.